This is the history of Russia in 100 seconds. Kievan Rus was a loose federation of East Slavic, Baltic and Finnic peoples in Eastern and Northern Europe from the 9th to the 13th century. It laid the groundwork for the identities of modern Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. So let's meet the Rus. The term Rus comes from the name of the Rus people who inhabited the area around the city of Kiev. By the 9th century, they were a Baltic tribe that spoke an East Slavic language. Their society was made up of 3 estates. The first estate was the elite class of merchants and warriors called the Druzhina. They were similar to the Vikings, who had raided and traded along the northern shores of the Black Sea. The Rus were also seafarers, and they established a trading post in the Byzantine Empire, which would become the center of the Rus trade network. The second estate consisted of the local Slavic populations that the Rus had subjugated. The third and final estate was made up of the slaves that the Rus had captured during their wars. Now, because this is a loose federation, it didn't have a central government. Instead, it was a collection of chieftains ruling over their own territories. This would change when the Rus adopted Christianity in 9. The Great wanted to strengthen his state by making it a part of the Byzantine sphere of influence. And so he converted his people, built new churches, and promoted literacy. This led to the construction of many cathedrals throughout Kievan Rus, such as the famous St. Sophia Cathedral in Kiev. Under Yaroslav the Wise, Kievan Rus reached its territorial peak. His legal code, the Ruskaya Pravda, established a common law across the land. It also set punishments based on the value of the victim. So the higher your social status, the higher the fine for killing you. During this time, Kiev became one of the largest cities in Europe, with a population of around 500,000 people. But this prosperity wouldn't last. In 1054, the East-West Schism divided Christianity into 2 separate branches, the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church, and Kievan Rus found itself at the center of this conflict. While most of the North and Western Rus followed the Roman Catholic Church, the South and Eastern Rus remained loyal to the Orthodox Church. This growing divide would eventually lead to the downfall of Kievan Rus. As the power of Kiev declined, 3 new principalities emerged: Moscow, Vladimir, and Lithuania. They would go on to conquer and rule over the lands of the former Kievan Rus. The Mongol invasion. In the 13th century, the Mongols began their invasion into Europe. As the Mongols moved west, they pillaged and destroyed everything in their path. In 1238, they laid siege to the city of Kiev. Although the city resisted for several months, the Mongols ultimately triumphed, burning it to the ground. From then on, Kiev would never again be the same. The rise of Moscow and the fall of the Golden Horde. After the Mongol invasion, the remnants of Kievan Rus fled to the protection of the Lithuanian Empire. Meanwhile, the Mongols divided the conquered lands into several administrative centers. The most important of these was the Golden Horde, which stretched from eastern Ukraine to the Ural Mountains. But the Golden Horde wasn't exactly a fan of the Rus. They forced them into serfdom and extracted heavy taxes from them. This sparked revolts, especially under the leadership of Alexander Nevsky. In 1248, he led a revolt against the Mongols and defeated them at the Battle of the Neva. This victory earned him the nickname Alexander Nevsky, which means of the Neva. This battle marked the beginning of Moscow's rise to prominence. As the Mongols grew weaker, the Russian principalities became more powerful. This was especially true after the Black Death pandemic devastated the Golden Horde. When Batukin died in 1252, it triggered a succession crisis. The Russians took advantage of this internal conflict and won several victories against the Mongols. In 1380, Dmitry Donskoy defeated the Golden Horde at the Battle of the Voronezh River, ending Mongol dominance over Russia. But there was still one last hurrah left in the Mongols. In 1480, Ivan III finally ended the Mongol advance into Russia by refusing to pay tribute to the Crimean Khan. This marked the end of the Mongol period in Russia. Now, before we move on, we're going to take a quick break to thank our sponsor. Hey, welcome back. Ivan the Terrible. Ivan IV was the first Tsar of Russia. He inherited a small but rapidly growing state. During his reign, Russia expanded significantly. He conquered the former capital of Kiev and the surrounding areas. He also launched a massive eastward expansion into Siberia. This expansion came at a cost. Though as Ivan used brutal force to subjugate the non-Russian populations, he also waged war on Sweden and Lithuania, trying to win back the territories lost by Kievan Rus. Although his attempts were unsuccessful, Ivan the Terrible left a lasting legacy on Russia. He established the foundations for autocracy and laid the groundwork for future Russian expansions. The Romanov dynasty. After Ivan the Terrible's death, Russia fell into a period of instability. This led to the time of troubles, when the country was ruled by a series of regents and foreign invaders. It ended with the election of Mikhail Romanov as the new Tsar. This marked the beginning of the Romanov dynasty and a return to stability for Russia. Under their rule, Russia would become a major European power. Peter the Great. Peter was determined to transform Russia into a modern state. He introduced sweeping reforms in all areas of Russian life. He modernized the military, reformed the legal system, and established new schools and universities. Peter also embarked on a massive building project in the new capital of St. Petersburg. There, he built palaces, churches, and other public buildings. But perhaps his greatest accomplishment was the introduction of the Russian alphabet. He created a new alphabet based on the Latin and Greek alphabets, which replaced the Cyrillic alphabet. This made it easier for Russians to read and write. Peter the Great's reforms laid the foundation for Russia's rise as a great power in the 18th century. Catherine the Great, Catherine II, or Catherine the Great, was the longest reigning female monarch in Russian history. She came to power when her husband, Peter III, was assassinated. During her reign, Russia experienced a cultural and intellectual flourishing known as the Age of Enlightenment. Catherine also expanded Russian territory through a number of wars. She conquered Crimea and parts of Poland and the Ottoman Empire. Her territorial gains made Russia a major player in European politics. The fall of the Romanov dynasty. By the early 20th century, the Romanov dynasty was in decline. The last Tsar Nicholas II was forced to abdicate the throne in 1917 during the Russian Revolution. This marked the end of the Romanov dynasty and the beginning of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, after the abdication of Nicholas II, the Bolsheviks seized power and established the Soviet Union in 1922. The USSR was a communist state led by a single party, the Communist Party. It was also a totalitarian state, meaning that the government controlled every aspect of public and private life. The Soviet Union played a major role in the Second World War and emerged as one of the victorious allies. However, the war had taken a heavy toll on the country, and it soon entered a period of This was followed by a period of stagnation under Leonid Brezhnev. By the 1980s, the Soviet economy was stagnant and its political system was unable to respond to the challenges of the late 20th century. On December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved and the Russian Federation was established. Modern Russia. Since the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Russia has become a major player in world politics. Under President Vladimir Putin, Russia has become increasingly authoritarian. Putin has been in power for 24 years and has been accused of human rights abuses and of suppressing opposition. Nevertheless, Russia remains an important country, and its history will continue to shape the world for years to come. Now check out this video for the history of Ukraine in 100 seconds, or this video for the history of the Soviet Union in 100 seconds.